such as Foxy Brown, Coffee, and Sheba Baby. One of her biggest fans at the time was a kid named Quentin Tarantino, who grew up to be a famous filmmaker and wrote the title role of his latest film just for her. The film is Jackie Brown. It's a big hit. As a matter of fact, Pamela Grier has recently been nominated for a Golden Globe Award as Best Actress, and I'm pleased to welcome her to CBS, and thanks for coming in. How has this film changed your life from the way it was, say, a year ago?
I don't get a lot of sleep now.
Okay.
People hand me scripts in the parking lot. I can't go to Kmart and buy like sinus medication without people mobbing me. And like at the Kmart in New York, I walked in.
You don't go to Kmart.
Yes, I do. Kmart and Target and J.C. Penney.
Target.
Yes, I do. Target. And I'm a blue light shopper at Kmart. I just went in and I was mobbed. And so the supervisor comes down. She says, "Can I have an autograph?" I said, "No. Not until you open 5 more check stands for 900 people standing out here." There's 2 check stands open.
Well, that's always the way at those stores.
Especially in New York City.
Yeah,
there's 50 million people and 2 check stands open. I'm like, I'm dying. My head's throbbing. And so finally she said, okay. She opened up 5 more and I signed her autograph. Bribery. It works.
But people come up to you now and they...
All the time. I can't go to the restroom at the airport without people slipping up. Excuse me, I know you're in there.
Man.
Could you sign this? I said, in between, when? You know.
I've read many articles about this picture and about you and about Robert Forster, who's in the picture, and Quentin Tarantino.
So wonderful.
How are you with this word comeback?
Oh, it's fine with me.
Is it okay?
Tom, guess what? I guess it means I was big once.
Yeah?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I'll take it. And often when I would find a good body of work, it would be maybe 1 every 4 years.
Okay.
Not 4 times a year. So that's fine with me. But you know, when you don't have a lot of choices, I would go off and do plays. I did great theater. I did Fool for Love by Sam Shepard, and I put on 80 pounds to do Frankie Johnny and Claire de Lune. So I was really honing my skills, just waiting for
okay, but then you've been doing stuff since those so-called blaxploitation pictures of the 70s. You've been busy. It just hasn't been on this big hype scale that we're having right now.
They're not as visible.
Gotcha.
You know, the theater is different than blockbuster films.
And what else from the 70s is coming back? Bell bottoms? Hip huggers?
Yeah, and crack heels. You know, every time you bend over, you know, you're mooning everybody. The big afros, a lot of the music, and I guess a lot of the energy of the 70s. You know, because the 70s was a great time of exploration and adventure. Because I think, as you know, you're one of my idols. You know everything.
Oh, come on.
You know everything, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, it was you had the political rewards of the 50s and 60s. So in the 70s, we had the women's movement, burning the bras, shortening the skirts. We had Playgirl magazine that folded out and to the side. We had just a huge time of freedoms. And it was a drug culture. People running naked through Woodstock. You know, everyone, nudity was so interesting. So now we got very rigid in the 80s, and now we're reaching back to the 70s to see what was so interesting. Yeah,
and let me ask you here about these pictures that you made in the 1970s, because in my introduction to you, they showed a montage of pictures, you know, when you did those films in the 70s. Many people now look back on those films and they criticize them as saying, well, they exploited black actors, they worked for low wages, they were made by white people.
And they were the only ones? Okay, duh.
But what's your view on those pictures?
Well, for me, they basically exemplified Afrocentric pop culture. All phases, religious, spiritual, art, profanity, community, you know, what was going on, that's what it was about. And it was a time where, I think the term was coined, basically, to say that it was a film for the black audience. And I remember...
And probably a lot of black people went to those films and enjoyed seeing them very, very much.
Very much so. And a lot of the crew members, I mean, came aboard and joined the unions and really were inspired by this movement of filmmaking. And then you had, it depended on your political agenda. Now, you could say it was a black film for black people produced by whites, and they got all the money. Another agenda. And then the films that were produced by blacks, for blacks, with black themed stories, that was thrown in. So, you know, what's a blaxploitation film? And for me, I think it was every year, everyone was basically sticking with the same formula. And the films began to get very redundant. And we were
the same
boring.
Themes over and over again.
We were boring the very audience that we built. And they were coming to me, and Tom, they were saying, why can't you do something different? I mean, we really like what you're doing.
Yeah.
But you know, they knew about the black westerns and black cowboys and
let's
other
do a
figures.
western, let's do a murder mystery, and let's do all
historical figures. And they said, "What?" Well, and I would go to the producer and say, "Well, have you ever thought of doing, you know, putting them in something different?"
Yeah.
Because the audiences, they are telling me that we are boring them. And they said, no, let's stick with it. If it ain't, you know, broke, don't fix it.
Right.
To make money, keep churning it. I said, well, you know, we're boring a lot of people, and they're going to stop coming. Number one, they don't have the disposable dollars to come see a movie 3 or 4 times, the same one. So we're going to lose them. And they said, oh, no, no, no. Well, within months, they started not going. And if they continued to go, they'd be making them today.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
But they
If they were making money.
bored everybody. There was the same formula. So I just decided to move on. If I'm going to stay in the business, I need to get serious about my acting. It's not for tuition anymore. It's for the craft, if that's what I'm going to be.
So, end of that kind of movie for Pam.
For me.
Let me ask you here about how your film career got started. And reading about you this afternoon, when you were 17, living in Colorado, as I recall,
Right.
you enter a beauty contest. And in one of these beauty pageants, somebody notices you. Somebody sees something in you. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and so you moved to Los Angeles.
Not right away.
No, but sooner or later you moved to Los Angeles with an eye towards going to school, going to film school or acting school or theatrical.
I really didn't even know. I was a pre-med dropout, and the late David Baumgarten, who was the president of the Agency for the Performing Arts, he thought I had something very, very interesting. And I was, well, I could talk and I could communicate, but I didn't have a lot of self-esteem because I didn't know I was like supposed to be a beautiful woman. I just thought I was very boring, very average. And
why would you think that?
Because in my family, we were taught not to see one person as more attractive than another person. If your eyes worked, you could see. If your nose and your mouth worked, you were great. So I think it was so we wouldn't have dissension in the family, and in our family we
But
had.
certainly when you looked in the mirror, you knew that you looked okay.
Well, okay, but not pretty. I didn't wear eyelashes or makeup, and I thought I was told that I wasn't pretty in my family. None of us were.
They lied to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And it was my grandmother. She just didn't want to create dissension among the kids, the siblings, because some are very light-skinned and some are very dark-skinned. And then growing up in the 50s and 60s, a light-skinned child was more attractive than a black-skinned child.
Gotcha.
And that was like so bizarre in our family. So she just wanted to keep it very neutral. So I entered this pageant for tuition and to, you know, create a sense of self. And this wonderful man named David Baumgarten talked to my mom before I got home from the pageant to convince me to come out to California. I said, no, I'm in pre-med, I don't want to go. And I just turned him down for a whole year until I got my heart broken in Denver. And then I didn't want to be there and see.
Now, is there a story about the heartbreaking, or is that?
No, it was dull, it was boring.
Okay.
Only because I just wasn't mature. I didn't want to give up any. You know what I'm talking about.
I got you.
Okay. I just decided to leave and take a chance on, you know, I can only take one class because I was putting myself through school, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to like this, then I give myself 2 years.
What I want to get to here is your film school turned out to be working for Roger Corman at American International Pictures.
Pretty much so.
Okay.
I had one of my jobs. I had so many.
All right,
Tom.
let me get to that in a second. I have to take a break here. We're talking with Pam Grier. The picture is called Jackie Brown. It's in theaters now, and we'll be right back with Pam and you on the toll-free as time permits after this break. With Pamela Grier, here is Steve on the toll-free in Springfield, Missouri. Hi, Steve. You're on the air.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you? Have you seen Jackie Brown yet, Steve?
Not yet. I want to.
Well, after seeing Pam Grier, you certainly do. Say hello to her.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I was wanting to ask you a question. I saw a newspaper article a few years ago, Natural Born Killers came out, about a kid who actually shaved his head like Woody Harrelson and committed those crimes. What are your feelings on violence in movies such as Jackie Brown and Natural Born Killers influencing children to go out and commit these crimes?
Well, in Jackie Brown, there's very, very, very little amount of violence. Natural Born Killers is the antithesis of Jackie Brown as far as violence. However, often films and stories are based on life. I mean, who's going to say life imitates art, art imitates life?
Right.
But it's up to the individual who hopefully has some mental control of themselves. I mean, you're going to see an art form. You're not going to see a political agenda that tells you how to live your life. Hopefully you will understand that theory. But if someone is that immature to go to a film and be inspired to go out and kill someone, then that's not an artistic problem. That's more of a political, maybe a social, maybe a medical problem, and it has to be addressed.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me, whenever this topic comes up, I think of something that Dick Cavett said many, many years ago when asked this very same question, because television, too, has been accused of fostering violent behavior. He said, you know, if you look at television, we have, now we have David Letterman, we have Jay Leno, we have the Comedy Channel, we have Saturday Night Live. If there's so much comedy on television, why isn't comedy breaking out on the streets of America?
Yet if we I'm a big fan of Bob Vila, This Old House, PBS.
Yeah, people aren't building houses at 5th and 49th in New York
Animal
City.
Planet, you know, I watch all the time, so it's up to your individual taste.
Well, Animal Planet, really?
Yeah, yes, wonderful.
Yes, it is.
And of course, Bob Vila's, you know.
This Old House, sure.
You know, and the other shows about home building, but it's.
Do you watch the TV Food Channel where they cook at all?
Yes, and I get hungry and I go to the refrigerator and I'm cooking. I turn on the TV in the kitchen.
That's right.
Yeah, but often I don't, because I'll watch a lot of the scientific programs where they have surgery. You know, I'm fascinated by that. So it's up to the individual and their interests.
When you said dropped out of pre-med, was that voluntary? Did you just leave that of your own accord?
Well, no, I
only ask because you mentioned you watch surgery, documentaries and stuff like that.
Hey, let me tell you, I disappointed a lot of people in my family by not continuing medicine. But in my soul, I remember my psychology professor, I was working, you know, so many jobs, working so hard to get on a list to get a grant or scholarship. He said, I hope you know what you're doing, and I hope you're really doing what you really need to do in your heart, not for other people. And it hit home. I thought about it, and I was doing a lot of things for prestige, you know, going to school, be a doctor for the family. Possibly I was gifted to be a physician, and maybe a good one. But something, when I saw my first Godzilla movie, and then 101 Dalmatians, I was like, I love that. What is it? What is it?
Right.
But you're always, you know, your key to freedom and success is to have a title, get an education, not become an actor. What's that?
Yeah.
You're unemployed half the time. What does that do for the community? How are you giving back? And that's how I was raised. And I really felt for a long time I didn't get the support from my family like I thought I would, because I became an actor, and that's not giving back to the community. That's not saving anyone. Yes, you entertain them for a certain amount of time, but then how can I do more? You know, maybe if you become visible and popular, you can help, you can donate, you can, you know, raise funds for programs.
Yet for those times when people come in to see you in a stage play or in a motion picture, you do give back to them. You do provide them moments in their life that are positive and that are enjoyable. When people go into a motion picture theater, they're leaving bag and baggage outside. They're coming in to be entertained.
Got that right.
They're coming, and you give that to them, you who act. You give us all a tremendous gift when you give us those moments of joy in a theater or a movie house.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's so well said for people to understand that, because we don't get to go home when we're sick.
Yeah, exactly.
We're up 18 hours a day with 104 temperature out there working. Holidays, we work all the holidays.
Let me ask you about the Roger Corman Film School. For people who aren't familiar, Roger Corman in the 1960s, 70s, and to this very day makes movies for a very small amount of money, and they turn out quite well and they make a profit.
Very much so.
But you don't just act when you work for Roger Corman, do you?
No, you might get a chance to be script girl, carry equipment, do a lot of things, intern. My first 4 films with Roger Corman, and I got to learn a lot about filmmaking. And I think I was doing it for tuition. I didn't think I was going to be an actor, because my first job was at a receptionist at the Agency for the Performing Arts, and they wanted to get rid of me because I was this radical receptionist. I wouldn't let them take office supplies out, steal it, in other words, or lie about, you know how they say, tell them I'm not here. No. You tell the truth and you come on time.
What were you, a cop?
Yeah.
A cop receptionist?
Yes, I was the Angela Davis of receptionists. They were, get her out of here. We can't have the office as loose as we want. So I got this job at $500 a week with Roger, and it was like that was the door that opened for me. And I didn't think I'd be a real good actress until about when I did Grease Lightning. And then I said, you know what? I think I'm not scared. I'm not afraid to be an actor. You have to reveal so much of yourself. And that's when I knew I could do it, but I wanted to study and learn, get to do theater, and then I would know.
So for all the years that you did work that was not as visible as Jackie Brown or the pictures that you made in the 70s, you were a working actor.
Right.
until
Yeah, all the time.
1988 when something came to your front door and said, hello, I'm here, and that was cancer.
Yeah, right.
And that was a tough time for you.
Well,
was this a tough cancer? I know you don't talk about it.
It was a profound one. It was life-threatening. And you can only go from hour to hour, not day to day or week to week. And with the guidance and the heart of my physicians here in Los Angeles, and listening to them, and also getting involved with Chinese herbs and meditation and things like that, I was able to win. And I'm here today because of it.
And you won. You did beat it.
Yes, I did.
How did you then, from that, get back into your business?
Well, I really didn't know if I was going to. And I was pulled back into it. Like I was pulled every time. I've always been pulled back. And something says you're going to do this in the universe. Okay, I'm going. So Tim Reed called me to do a role on Frank's Place, which is a wonderful series.
Oh, sure, I remember that.
The movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it because I didn't know if I could remember my lines. I didn't know how I looked. I didn't look well. I would have to wear a hairpiece. I just wasn't myself.
Gotcha.
And they were thinking that, hey, I was doing plays or movies or something, I would look fantastic. And I turned them down. I said, we want you to do it. So I said, okay, will they accept how I look? And I went, and they did. And it was a struggle. It was, it was a short half an hour.
Sure.
And I did okay. I wasn't myself. And love pulled me back into it. And I brought a lot of, I guess, something different.
The love
about
of?
me. The love of the work mattered. All of my work in the past and about who I was as a person mattered to them enough for them to call me and say, no, we really want you to do this.
Good.
And for me to say, okay, and they wanted me to look different. They wanted me to look pretty and wanted me to look like the old Pam, the sexy old Pam, and I just didn't look that way, and they accepted me for that.
Speaking about the real Pam, there's a story involving a puppy in the street I read this afternoon.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Well, for some time, it just seemed like this 1 month, all of a sudden, God or whoever is my guidance.
We'll take God, that's okay.
Okay, I'll take him too. Well, there was this puppy that flew out of this van in the middle of a very busy intersection, and it just rolled, a little fuzzball. He couldn't have been more than 6-7 weeks old. And I said, oh my God, he's going to be crushed by all these cars coming, So the van pulled over, but the guy didn't know which way the puppy went. And he went back across traffic again, and I just blocked the intersection with my car. And I started running for him, and I dove because the cars are coming over the hill.
Yeah.
And I dove for him, I grabbed him, and I did this roll, and skinned off all my knees and elbows. And I had this puppy clutched to my chest, right? And all of a sudden, I heard these people going whistling and clapping, and they were watching me, right? And I'd saved this puppy, and the man who's had the van that the puppy flew out of ran over to me. He was crying. He said, thank you. He was just so moved the fact that I, saved his
pup's
puppy.
life, sure.
And he just picked him up from the pound, and he was going to take him to get his shots. And I was like so overwhelmed by it. And then
Did you tell him to keep the door closed this time?
The window. Please keep your window up. Centrifugal force when you go around corners. And then in the next week, there was a woman being mugged in a parking lot of a supermarket, and her hair was entangled in her purse, and the mugger had been hitting her in the face and kicking her.
You saw this happen?
Yeah, and it scared me so much. I heard her. I kept hearing. I thought it was a radio, and I heard these cries for help. And I was looking around. I said, and finally I saw her try to run out from between two cars, and he pulled her back, and he was stomping her face, and I was looking for guys, to help her.
Where are you guys? Yeah, we need you
there's
now.
no one around, so I couldn't stand to see her suffer anymore, and I got my stun gun and a crowbar out of the car,
really?
ran over to him, and I just lunged at him a couple of times, and I figured I didn't see his shirt was open. He didn't have a gun in his waistband in the front or back, so I knew I could at least take him. If he went for something, I could hit his arms, because I've been.
Well, I could tell you where else to hit him,
Yeah, that too. And he finally, I kept lunging at him, and he kept dodging, and he let her go. And he ran off, and then two guys saw it and ran after him, and I was like, my God, well, I could have been killed if he'd had a knife.
That's right.
But he didn't, and I knew I would have a chance. But I just couldn't stand to see her be brutalized anymore. I mean, her whole side of her head was just caved in.
Pam to the rescue, huh?
I don't know why y'all I do those things.
Congratulations on the success of Jackie Brown, and thanks for coming on our show tonight. And I hope that your career continues to please us as your audience and you as the actor. Thanks a million, kid.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for keeping your show going. You were missed.
Thanks a million. I appreciate that. Pam Grier is the guest. You'll enjoy her in Jackie Brown, which is in big screens all across America, the new Quentin Tarantino film. Next, Dr. Dean Adele, and What Is This Flu All About? We'll be right back. Guitar.